A reading from the book of Genesis. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk from the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the time set, I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. He said, "Oh, yes, you did laugh." The Lord dealt with Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to his son, whom Sarah bore him. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Now Sarah said, "God has brought laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me." And she said, "Who would ever have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Today's reading from the book of Genesis contains one of the most absurd promises that God ever makes. Sarah is 90 years old. Her husband, Abraham, is 100. And God promised them a baby. Not some kind of a metaphor and not a spiritual descendant, all those will come along too in time. Simply a child, a flesh and blood, living, breathing, squirming, squalling baby. Born in the usual way, and this from a body that has long since stopped being able to do that sort of thing. As the story goes, Abraham has pitched his tent by the oaks of Mamre. According to the historian Josephus, the tree at Mamre was considered to be older than creation itself. There is another tradition that says that this is the place where the altar of the Temple of Jerusalem will eventually stand. This is holy ground. Suddenly, out of the heat of the day, 3 strangers appear, and Abraham, in a dazzling display of hospitality, runs out to meet them. Now remember, Abraham is 99 years old, but still he manages to run out to greet his guests. "My Lord," he says, "if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." It is, of course, a classic formulary of hospitality. Abraham's offer of food is not extravagant, lest it be perceived as being too obsequious and invite suspicion. It is, as he says, but a little bread. All the while knowing full well that he will immediately order up a major feast that cannot be refused once set. Cakes, a freshly slaughtered calf, curds and milk, all of which he sets before his guests, and then hastily retreats into the shadows to allow them to eat unhindered by the attentions of a dithering host. Then somewhere between the curds and the conversation they ask after Sarah. "Where is your wife Sarah?" they inquire. "There in the tent," is Abraham's reply. And then comes the moment of promise. "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." Sarah, we are told, is listening at the entrance of the tent, and just in case we've missed it, the text reinforces the fact that both she and Abraham are no spring chickens. They are old. They are old as dirt. And then the writer adds, with a kind of clinical directness, it had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Years ago at St. David's Church in Garden City, one of our readers loved to read from the Good News translation of the Bible. And on this particular Sunday, she read that translation's rendering of that line, "It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women." Only in the Good News translation it reads, "Sarah had stopped having her monthly periods." And when she finished the reading and sat down, there was a young woman seated in the front row who blurted out, "So that's why they call it the Good News Bible." That laugh, the laugh that maybe you just laughed, that laugh captures precisely Sarah's laugh. It's the laugh of a woman who knows that this must surely be a joke. It's the laugh of a woman who long ago gave up hoping for a child. It's the laugh of a woman who knows what's being promised simply is not possible. But it is not a guffaw. The text says that she laughed within herself. Her laugh is the laugh that you swallow, the involuntary response to hearing something that your body knows is absurd. "After I have grown old and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" Sarah's not being flip in her response. She's being honest. 90 years of living have taught her what bodies can and cannot do. The promise may be a kindness, perhaps, but it is also ridiculous. And this is where things get interesting, because suddenly it's not the strangers who are speaking. Suddenly it's God. And God doesn't speak to Sarah. No, God speaks to Abraham. Why did Sarah laugh? And Sarah, more than a little frightened, denies it. "I didn't laugh," she says. But God's having none of that. "Oh yes, you did laugh," is God's response. And I think we can probably hear more than a little bit of a chuckle in God's voice. Notice what doesn't happen. There is no punishment. There is no withdrawal of the promise. No, "Well, since you didn't have enough faith, this whole deal is off." God simply names the disbelief directly, plainly, and without flinching, and then keeps right on going. The promise stands exactly as it was before Sarah laughed. Her skepticism has not changed a single thing about what God intends to do. And then God names the child, Isaac. In Hebrew, Yitzchak. He laughs. God takes the doubt, the swallowed, private, completely earned skepticism of a 90-year-old woman, and he makes it the child's name. Sarah's disbelief is not erased. It gets written into the story. From now on, whenever someone calls this child, every time his name is spoken for thousands of subsequent years of Jewish memory, they will be saying, "She laughed." And when the child is at last born, Sarah herself will say, "God has brought laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me." It's that same word, Yitzchak. The same body, but an entirely different laughter. What was Sarah's private skepticism has now become her public joy. But know this, you don't get to the second laugh without going through the first. Sarah's joy is not a replacement for her doubt. It is her doubt transformed, transfigured. Most of us have been taught, I think, that faith comes first. It's a necessary prerequisite. If only you will believe, then God will act. If only you get your heart right, get your doubts under control, arrive at certainty, then you'll get the promised goods. But Sarah's story reveals the lie of those sentiments. Her story runs in the exact opposite direction. God makes the promise. Sarah laughs at the promise. God names her laughter, and then God keeps the promise anyway. So know this today. If that's how God works, then your doubt, whatever doubt you may be holding or hiding, your doubt is not a disqualification. Your honest, hard-won 90 years in a body skepticism is not an obstacle that God needs you to clear out of the way before God's promises can land. It might even get a place in the story. God might even name something after it. Until next time, here is a poem by Kaylin Hott. God Says Yes to Me. I asked God if it was okay to be melodramatic, and she said yes. I asked her if it was okay to be short, and she said it sure is. I asked her if I could wear nail polish or not wear nail polish, and she said, honey, she calls me that sometimes, she said, you can do exactly what you want to do. Thanks, God, I said. And is it even okay if I don't paragraph my letters? Sweet cakes, God said. Who knows where she picked that up? What I'm telling you is yes, yes, yes.